Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey. And I think you're getting tired of hearing me talking about my skiing trips. And I won't tell you today about my trip up the mountain skiing. We'll leave that one alone, and we're going to talk about Inverness, Scotland. If I was to pick one place where I would like to be in Scotland to start a trip, you think it would be Edinburgh or maybe Glasgow. And of course those are places we fly into. But the place I found quite striking and something I related to that community and to the area, maybe because I felt like I really was in Scotland. And we went to the south of Inverness. We went to the west of Inverness. We were to the east of Inverness. We saw Highland distilleries. We saw the Speyside distilleries. There was just so many distilleries, so many castles, and so much history. The Battle of Culloden, to the west, Glencoe. But just really a central point, a central focal point to start from. The one direction I never talked about is to the north. And I actually found these notes, and it kind of inspired me. I've been at a bit of a, they call it kind of a video standstill lately here. What do they call it? Writer's block? Maybe video block, because I was not really motivated until I read my notes that I did when I was in Scotland. And so I find these notes, and it just got me going. You know, I've got lots of videos of Scotland, but these really got me. This took me back to the moment. And I did do a little bit of editing to these notes because I couldn't have presented them to you. Number one, I had to condense some of it. But I'm just going to sort of start off here. I found, obviously, Inverness was the central focal point. You know, historically, you know, the castles, the distilleries. There are so many of the old distilleries close by. Now, there is a distillery right in Inverness called Uilebheist distillery, but I'm talking about the historic, the traditional distilleries, the ones that most of you will know. And if we were, let's say, just traveling within 14 miles of Inverness, there's a distillery. I've never talked about it. I've never really mentioned it to you. It's been a long time since I've done a video on that particular whiskey that this distillery produces. And there's 3 different places they produce this whiskey. And of course, I am talking about the Singleton, and I'm talking about Glenord Distillery, which is the only one that really has a visitor center. Now, it's only 14 miles from, you know, to the west of Inverness. When you're heading north, you cross the Keswick Bridge, north of Inverness. And you're on A9. And you're basically going to go up to what we call a Tor roundabout. All your intersections are really roundabouts in Scotland. So at the Tor roundabout, you turn left on A832. That's A832. 2 miles west on 832 at the Red Castle sign, you could turn left down that narrow road to see the historic Red Castle. And you travel for about 6 miles and you're in Glenord Distillery. You're actually in the Muir of Ord is the name of the community. And that's Glenord, one of the Singleton distilleries. Clan Mackenzie owned this land for 700 years, and in 1838, Thomas Mackenzie built the distillery. The old distillery is very contrasting with the modern and spacious visitor center that also does tours and tastings. And if we travel 22 miles north of Inverness, we're in Delmore. And we all know Delmore. So Delmore is another historic distillery, and it's on the water. The distillery was built in 1839 by Alexander Matheson and was sold to the Mackenzie brothers in 1867. The Mackenzie family ran it for 93 years, and then White and McKay took over in 1960 and are operating it today. Now, if we went just 15 miles north of Delmore, along the Firth, you will arrive at Glenmorangie. And Glenmorangie Distillery is also right on the water. Glenmorangie Distillery is 15 miles north of Dalmore on the shores of Dornoch Firth, and it is known to have the tallest stills in Scotland at 17 feet that are nicknamed the Giraffes. And, I'm going to cover that one at a later date. We're going to keep going, because at this point, we're probably, about 50 minutes from Inverness, just under an hour. If we head west on A836, just for another 3.5 miles, we're at Balblair Distillery. Balblair was built in 1790 and is the 4th oldest distillery in Scotland. It has only 2 short, fat stills and is contrastingly smaller than its Glenmorangie neighbour 5 miles to the east. But we're going to stop at Balblair. Basically an old distillery, you betcha it's an old. It was founded in 1790, and that was by John Ross. And there's the stories of them distilling there 50 years prior to that. The distillery was run by the Ross family for 100 years. And when Alexander Cowan took over the distillery in 1894, he actually built a new still house, new mash house. He did quite a bit of expansion. Then a year later, he moves the distillery. And that location was only about a half a mile. I believe it's right to the west. The Arcade Inverness rail line was there, and that was the motivation to move it. Now, this distillery was run till about 1911, and then it was mothballed. Those were tough times because it didn't come alive again till 1948. That's 37 years later, and that's when Bertie Cummings, the famous, he was a solicitor and also owned Old Pulteney. And he was a well-known character, well-known in the whiskey business and the whiskey trade. And he basically kept it running till 1970 when he sold the distillery to the big old Canadian giant Hiram Walker. And of course, Hiram Walker eventually became Allan Lyons. And Allan Lyons, in 1996, sold it to Inverness Distillery, who owns it today. And we've done reviews on Balblair, on the 12. We have done reviews on the 15. And the 12, by the way, was a good value for your money. The 15 was one of my favorite 15s. That's the Balblair 15. And what I want to do is I would like to do the 18, because I haven't reviewed it. So these boxes here, pretty normal boxes. There's nothing real fancy about them. But the 18... they've decided to, decided to fancy it up. Now, I don't know, are we paying for the fancy box? There's some people who are going to want the fancy box, and there's some people that won't. I'm going to leave it at that. Anyways, I'm going to compare these whiskeys. We got a chance here. We're going to pull them out and we're just going to kind of look at them.
There you are, the 12 and the 15. Now, it's pretty obvious, eh? The 12 is a heck of a lot lighter. I think that's because it's bourbon influence, and the 15 is sherry influence. Okay, pretty obvious. Let's move on to the 18 and the 15. Now, the 18 and the 15, and I can't tell the difference in the color. You tell me, I can't see the difference. And we know that the 18 has been finished for 3 years in Spanish oak sherry casks, and it almost looks like the 15 is too.
So we're going to get this glass up to you, and we're going to take a look at the color again, see how the legs are. Anyways, the nose, Uilebheist. Oh, rich and leather. And lots of spice. Even some floral stuff going on here. But I am getting the cinnamon. And something I'm not quite identifying right at the moment, but maybe it'll come a little bit later. But we're going to get right into the palate. Uilebheist. The spices, nutmeg, and even some pepper, chocolate, a little bit of a creaminess to it. Getting a little bit of that oak. I'm gonna say ginger. And a little bit of dark licorice. I don't know where that dark licorice is coming from. Good coating on the tongue and in the mouth. By the way, this did sit for 20-25 minutes. Let's go for the development and the finish. Uilebheist. It has definitely a decent finish to it, I can tell that. Getting a little bit more balanced notes now. The sweetness and a little bit of the citrus stuff there, with very slight bit of bitterness there with the wood. But the cinnamon and I'm going to stick with the ginger. Definitely some peppery stuff going on. There is some of that dark licorice going on here. The chocolate's still there. It's a spicy, dark chocolate. Maybe a little bit of orange there in the background. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this, see what it does. Give her the old swirl. And it's always interesting when we add water. This is 46%. It seems to have a bit of oiliness to it. That was something else I was going to mention. There is some body to it. The palate with water. Spicy chocolate. Some dates. Or stewed prunes. I mean, really, there's figs, there's raisins, there's all sorts of stuff going on right now. The sweet, the sour, and whatever that umami note is. Good Lord, it's some kind of a stew. That's what it is. Overall, very balanced drink. It's really hard to say how much different the 18 is than the 15. And I think I'm going to have to pour the 15 and just compare the two here because I'm really curious. Why don't we do that? So I'm going to add a little bit of water to the 15 here, just so it's the same as the 18 there. Okay, the palate of the 15. Uilebheist. Almost sweeter than the 15. I mean, it's got the spice, but it wasn't quite as intense as the with the nutmeg and the cinnamon and all that as the 18. Let me clear my palate here. You're definitely different. This is the 18. And remember, we added a wee bit of water to both of them. Spice, cinnamon, there's some orange going on. I still have that little licorice note there. But, I mean, it's got a bit of sweetness, but not as sweet as the 15. There's chocolate. It's getting even more balanced. This is getting really nice, the 18. Okay, the 15. Yeah, sweeter. There is the citrus notes here too, but I'm getting the over here. I get that orange, cinnamon, nutmeg, the spiciness. It's a little more. There's just a little bit more of it there, but it's getting more balanced out. This 18. This has got. I can really taste the Oloroso notes, like the chocolate and the fruit, the sweeter. I would say tart sweetness. And this did have a medium to long finish. I do remember that. So I think this has got a little longer finish to it. I have one last on the palate there with the 18. The palate. I'm getting just so much balance between the citrus notes, the sweetness of the Oloroso influence or the sherry influence, and that umami note. And there's a wee bit of saltiness to it, but overall, I'd say it's slightly more balanced than the 15, and definitely has a longer finish. So, how I would rate these? I mean, I've already rated the 15. I'd have to go back and take a look at my marks on it, but this is somewhere around an 87. This 18. Certainly, I think the 18 is a great whiskey. Is it worth the price you're paying? The 15, I think, is for sure. Comparably speaking, maybe the 15 is the better value. I don't know. I think that's going to be a personal choice. They're both good whiskeys. The 18 would definitely inch out the 15 tonight in terms of what I think is just a little bit more of a presentation, a little better balanced, a little longer finish, but the 15 still one heck of a whiskey, especially for the price. I'm going to leave it at that, okay? On that note, I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, and do not drink and drive. Until the next time, so long, Javon.